Hi, guys. It's me. I am joining you. It's Sunday, which usually I am over on the Paranormal channel watching Sunday Night Dead, or I am in a live Gypsy Tribe session with some of my very favorite people. But this weekend has been kind of crazy, and some of my usual sessions, they're out doing things. They're at weddings, they're traveling, they're filming. So today has been kind of neat where we had a family day to kind of check out, not do any calls, and the family all went out to the movie theater. Hey, Lizzie. And we saw the Tom and Jerry movie. It was really good. Then there was a really big storm, and then I got a call on my phone that there was an active shooter and that the behavior criminal apprehension, the BCA out of Minnesota, was one of the staff members involved with the active shooting. And then it was kind of listening to those calls where it seemed like the particular, now you guys, this is another police involved shooting in the Minneapolis area where we are currently waiting the verdict from the Chauvin trial and the George Floyd situation, and then also Daunte Wright and that particular situation and some of the protests and issues and the National Guard being deployed and a lot of really craziness. And so to hear again on the radio that there was another officer involved shooting, apparently it was a man in the middle of a hijacking, was shot after not responding to his presence, and then continued to go what appears to be a few blocks down, and then continues to hijack another vehicle. So I don't know exactly any further details on that, because it was kind of one of those where I then kind of checked in with my dad weekend, because it's been kind of a crazy weekend. And tomorrow is exciting for me because I've been sharing with friends and family as I go through the ladder and just check in with people and say, hey, I hope that I want you to hear from me. I'm doing a podcast, and it's going to be a little political, and it's going to be discussing anything from conspiracies over here to really conservative political things happening over here, and like where you meet in a middle space. So I know, Tina, right? And thank you guys for joining me. So I told you I would come on tonight and address any questions that you guys had, or frequently for the psychic stuff. Astrologically speaking, every Tuesday night, Matthew Slozier and we cover the astrology for the week. And tomorrow at noon, every Monday through Thursday, I will be doing No Man's Land, the new podcast. And so tomorrow is the debut episode for that. Now, if you are joining me or someone who's known me for a long time, I've done radio work since I was in high school. My mom was a professional singer. She had me doing all sorts of things. I was an intern for KQRC out of Kansas City. I was a rock girl. So I got to go do all of the Harley giveaways for, 7 or 8 years with Johnny Dare and Moose and John Nivens and the whole gang. And I really loved working in and around radio. And so I have been a voice actress and working in radio for a very long time. And so when you think about how my formal education with forensic psychology, doing assessment, talking, doing interviewing, doing PR, doing script writing and debate, doing the going over what someone is going to talk about on CNN, checking our language, neurolinguistic programming. So Tina said Monday through Thursday, noon, and that's Central Standard Time. What length? It's going to be an hour. So an hour minimum, because I've actually got a few different, I don't want to say networks, because I don't necessarily feel like just a completely online. I feel like it needs to have some sort of bandwidth as well, really. But that's kind of limiting. That's kind of changing in the realm, right? But there's a few different very good friends of mine that work in radio and have and need women that want to speak and women that want to come forward. And specifically in this space, being someone who's done forensic social services for a long time, being from Kansas City, having worked with law enforcement there, friends and family, Kansas City Police Department there, the FBI there, then doing graduate studies with Chicago, and then moving to Minnesota, living in downtown Minneapolis, being held at gunpoint, having some very serious things happen to our family, living in the cities. So when me working at law enforcement and getting my Minnesota law enforcement degree on top of my master's degree, I decided, you know what, doing continuing education credits can be done remotely. I can travel if I need to. It's not worth putting my family at risk. And when you work with violent offenders, sometimes they knock on your door or they find you. And Minneapolis isn't terribly friendly to women walking down on Payne Boulevard, as the caseworker there. And I know a lot of people screaming, send in the social workers as they defund the police, but having actually worked in that position, very much a purgatory space for crisis and being involved in suicides and being the person that helps when police need to do a handoff and they're dropping someone off, not at the emergency room, and we don't have asylums anymore. So a lot of times these individuals, as we often see in the shootings, are unfortunately they're repeat offenders. The very sad shooting recently in Indianapolis, Indiana, where the young man was unhappy with a certain situation, went to FedEx with a weapon that he had obtained legally, which still, I think the details of that I would be interested to know, because knowing that he had an open case with the FBI after mother had called in the recent year about a suicide by cop statement on his behalf. I would have to say, having worked in the state of Missouri and Minnesota and with people all over the country, that's not usual. You're probably going to be not able to obtain a gun. So that kind of irks me, just in kind of, because we do have a lot of gun laws in place, actually, that it's not as easy as people think. I mean, it's not that it's terribly difficult, and it shouldn't be, but mental health as far as HIPAA goes, and that has changed a lot with the pandemic. So I know that has altered a little bit. But Tina, an hour. It's going to be an hour. So hopefully you guys will come and join me tomorrow at noon. And then it's going to probably air at certain times throughout, depending on what networks are playing it and what time slots work for them. I plan on recording it live, though, with a chat at noon, because for me in the morning, I get up, I get everyone going, and then I get my day started and I listen to the news and I check in with everything. And that is usually when I'm very passionate and things are in the very forward sharp point. I've worked out, I go out on my long, walk, or I forage the property, or I do whatever it is that I'm doing to get my blood pumping. Sometimes it's dancing with my coffee in the kitchen, or cleaning, or vacuuming, or whatever it is. But you move around and I'm thinking things, and that is really the ideal time for me to have that discussion. And that's really what I think is missing, because I listen to a lot of podcasts, I listen to a lot of radio, and I listen to a lot of interviews, whether it's Dr. Peterson, or whether it's very far left or very far right. I find that there's not a middle ground. There's not someone that I can listen to, with the exception of like maybe Joe Rogan, that is going to talk fringe things, but also do it in an entertaining way that's not meant to be like straight up forward educational in your face. And I know that it's intimidating sometimes for people to not have a co-host, but if you have followed me on Live Paranormal, starting that way back in 2008, and then going to Paramania Radio, and then doing Intrepid Radio, and then doing the Situation Room, and then doing, I can hold my own on the microphone by myself, and I'm not worried about that. But I'm most interested in what you guys would like to cover, because I know for me, I know that sometimes people immediately shut off when they hear a conspiracy theory, or say, for example, if I do have a very passionate opinion about something and I do want to talk about bringing it into the gray, if you also have a very passionate opinion about it, whether it's an agreement with me or not, you may not be wanting to cooperate. And so that ability to move together and grow together is really, really, really important. So If you're joining me right now, if you've listened this far, we're 7 minutes in. People have come and gone. I will be doing a few free readings here at the end because I've got a really cool deck sitting next to me that I've been working with, and so of course I am absolutely happy to pull a few cards. But tonight I wanted to do kind of a video for those in my Gypsy tribe and those interested in how to be working alchemy or spirituality. Because let's face it, if maybe the pandemic has disturbed your ability to go to church on a regular basis. I know those of you who join me on social media like the meditation and the reading, and I do a lot of, whether it's binaural beats or, singing bowls or whatever, reposting people that I really appreciate the work that they do in that spiritual space. But you don't want to get too fluffy and too crazy, right? So for me, I work a lot of alchemy. And I think sometimes people get confused and maybe what that means or what that is about. And I have a lot of friends and family that are terribly, terribly religious. I use that very kindly, of course. And I know that they are interested and probably maybe watching, but aren't quite. I wonder what they think I do. I wonder what you think when someone says or hears that, you practice alchemy or you're a witch, you're a witch, or a vulva, or a cedar, or a drabarni, or whatever word you want to use. So many different words. Shaman, not really my culture, but that is a word, perhaps. Witch, just being someone who practices, walks in a taboo space of awareness that spirituality is more than a religion of man. And I say man in a complete human sense, right? I really love utilizing alchemy, but I'm also really objective. I'm married to an agnostic atheist person that's very grounded and objective. And I work with people all the time in a scientific research community where I have to not be crazy, which, as if you know me, can maybe be kind of hard. Hi, Terry. Hi, Lizzie. So being able to relay what it is that I'm thinking, being able to use NLP and spirituality and counseling. I had someone actually today and reaching out and saying, this is kind of what I'm looking for. And these are the questions I have. And can you help me? I know it's weird. And I just found myself wondering how to make these connect. And someone recommended you. And I really appreciate that because it is often when we just find ourselves in a really strange space, we're not quite sure how to work things out. That's where I like working with people the most. So again, not treatment. I don't do psychological treatment. People get that confused when they hear the word psychologist in that space. Please don't get it confused. It's a very different realm when you're doing private consulting and you're doing assessments and you're doing different things for like expert testimony and things like that. So, but let's go there. So there's been a word that I'm going to type it here to see if you guys use your psychic abilities. There has been, hi, Nicole. There has been a word that I see a lot in the protests. I see a lot in the riots. I see a lot in the graffiti. I see a lot in the merchandise, that I see a lot in the narrative. And when I am watching the trials or I'm listening to the radios or I'm paying attention, trying to be as aware as possible to it all, but not let it permeate me. Air magic is real, and there has been a huge shift. And I want to ask if you have been hearing the word justice. Justice, right? Justice. It's a very important word. But I'm wondering if you take a moment, which if you're in the Gypsy tribe, you'll be familiar with this. As a licensed hypnotherapist, I feel fully capable of allowing you to go ahead and walk openly into that space. I give you permission to do so. To think for just a moment, how do you define justice? What is justice? What heck? Ooh, apparently they're listening. What in the heck is that? Don't point your casting finger, Sarah. You'll break things. Now, whatever this answer is, think about it. that Mr. Rogers moment to take space and think about it. Hmm? Pause it, even if you want to do the witchery shadow work. When people ask what shadow work is, going in, doing the yin, doing the alchemy. What is justice? Now, whenever I read this aloud, I don't want to ruin it for anybody who isn't interested, but just for a brief NLP moment, just for a brief introspective moment into some alchemy and some of the things that I work whenever I'm doing spirituality work, is that this is a noun, justice, a noun in the broadest sense, a noun, just behavior or just treatment. And then I look at the synonyms, right? The same words or words that are like it. Fairness, equity, neutral, impartial, ethical, righteous, moral, virtuous, with principle, propriety, trustworthiness, non-partisanship, and objectiveness. Now, I don't know if you'll agree with me or not, but I can tell you, and Terry says, fairness, righteous, retribution. I don't want to add any water magic, not a feeling, right? And I'll share with this, and I know for those of you who've joined me before, when we talk like, earth, water, air, fire, earth, water, air, fire, this is a really important part of magic. And when someone says, like, I argue with witches a lot online sometimes if I'm feeling kind of saucy. It is so patriarchal. It's just so sexist. Do not get polarity confused. Do not get feminine and masculine and negative and positive confused with good and bad and naughty or not. That's not what we mean. And when I say earth, water, air, fire, and kind of the movement of energy as it's doing this, right? And it's spiraling and expanding and heaving and doing the thing that sacred geometry does. But to say that something's a noun and that it's a treatment and that it is a behavior and that it would be objective, this is earth qualities, practical thought, that the intent is fair, that it is intended not to be felt, not retribution, not revenge, not any of this. Air, not just to be said. You'll hear a lot of patterns right now of people getting frustrated with, don't just say it, do it. Oh yeah? Well, where'd you hear that? Well, you need to check your resources, fact check this, or culture, cancel, censor that. Air, we just moved into Aquarius, right? December 21st. December of this last year, 2020. The end of it, a great shift from one to the other, thou'st say, from a over here to an over here. Yeah, we went from Pisces, water, prophets like Buddha and Jesus who were self-sacrificing, that were starving themselves, that were being crucified for their beliefs, that were shedding blood, requiring confession and surrender and martyrdom and certain empathy to other people and a certain level of understanding. And we've just recently shifted to Aquarius, which is an air sign. It's an advancement in technology. It's a major advancement in art and creativity and innovation, information, how information is given and received. And it suggests that air, it's frequency, it's the sky, it's weather, it's shifts of climate, it's authority of verbs. People right now think for just a brief moment, and I know this is kind of a scary thought, but if in Duante Wright's case right now, I know people are up in arms about whether it's murder or manslaughter. By the way, if you know the law in Minnesota with culpability, you absolutely, if you want justice, if you want her to be put behind bars, then you want it to be for second-degree manslaughter, which will be hard to prove. But imagine if there was an audio to this. Imagine if there was an audio and it was just seeing that had aggravated robbery, and situations with previous issues, warrants, this kind of stuff, going back into their car, doing this, known to be armed, going back into their car. She could have said, in hindsight, but I felt like he was reaching for a gun and I shot. And so if he were reaching for a gun, then I would reach for a gun. But instead you hear taser, taser, taser. So actually the audio, this is a situation where we need to be very careful, because what we hear, you can't handle the truth, is actually going to be very, 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 very influential and very important to everything right now. So justice, now think about all of the beautiful personifications of justice. Usually she, an objective feminine energy, earth. The intention is good, but it must be blind. Now I know a lot of people get really upset in air, because justice, also the second definition, a magistrate, an impartial referee, like a Supreme Court judge. Justice, an actual position of authority in air to drop the gauntlet and say yes or no, or veto something. Yeah, you want that? You guys are out there for that? No, you're not. You're saying that the system's broken. You want to dismantle. You want something different. You don't want justice. You don't want fair treatment. Actually, think about it. Think about that behavior. That's it. If you're saying that it's not, then you understand that it can't be. It's a really interesting proclamation. It's a really interesting space that kind of starts to be like, eh? And also to say that your place or your position that you're coming from is therefore of really high emotion, right? Which when these things happen, it's really hard to be impartial. That's why we say, you know what, in the process and due process, we need to have these people that are separate enough, but not so far removed. We understand the relevance, but that you're not going to be emotionally compromised. You are still going to be able and capable of relaying information as accurately as possible. Okay. So if you want it to be impartial, if you want it to be neutral, man, a lot of what you're doing in a situation where you are protesting, it's now in a situation where that's not actually. And so the definition of justice and what it's defined as, a lot of what the people are doing in their treatment or in their behavior is not equal. It is not neutral. It is not honorable. It's definitely not ethical or moral. It's definitely not virtuous. And it's not based on honesty. And if you don't want someone of the Supreme Court space coming in, now think about though, the irony, the coincidence, the importance of language, as Barb states in the chat. I'm a little perturbed actually about the issues of adding Supreme Court justices. Think about how important this is right now with packing the court and people out there screaming with, seeing over and over and over on the media, because there is subliminal messaging, there is repetition, there is mass marketing going on. Know what justice means in the broadest sense, that people should receive that which they deserve. Is it that which they deserve? Because that's a very subjective interpretation. Deserving. Instead, it's simply meant to be that it's just behavior. It's fair play. It's righteous principles. It's honesty, and possibly a particular judge or magistrate or sheriff or someone coming in. I'm trying to pull up the other synonyms here that are kind of interesting. Surrogate, beak, recorder, bally, all these different little words that we put in there. His or her. That's interesting linguistically, shuffling around pronouns and these. It's also interesting when you think about the law or Lord. The law or Lord. That's interesting. And who's going to be the authority of that information? And who's going to be the regulators of that information is extremely important. Now, another word that's going to be popping up a lot, because if you guys have joined me for my alchemy things before and Nation with Tarot, you know that when air pops up, swords or spades, if you're used to playing with playing cards, it's sharp like tongues. It's quick wit because air can be connected to sending us back to Archangel Uriel, asking like what you know. It's ruled by Archangel Raphael. It is sharp. It is air. Comes from the east. Takes you here. It's very important that you know where it started, like a game of telephone. This is very, very, very important. Now, in alchemy, in this space, we understand that air magic, when I say, or when I'm working with someone to help them differentiate what kind of magic is their personal strength or weaknesses, how we are utilizing astrology right now, right? Which is all stuff you can find at Paranormal Sarah, by the way. Misfortune, I want you to take a second, another moment, if you will, if you're joining us, like Barb, Tina, Terry, Liz, Nicole, all of you guys. Take another moment. Maybe you're a time traveler from the future watching this in tomorrow land. I don't know. Definition of misfortune. That's a misfortune. That's a misfortunate thing. That's misfortunate. Misfortunate. What does that mean? It's an interesting word. Implying the lack thereof, perhaps. Bad luck. Miss. You didn't get it. You didn't have it. Fortune, luck. An unfortunate condition or event. The synonyms. A difficult time, a trouble, a setback, a reverse movement, an adversity, a mishap, a failure, an accident, a disaster, a tragedy, a sorrow, a misery, a woe, a trial, a tribulation, a catastrophe, a calamity. We could bring in all sorts of words here, but neurolinguistically, this is extremely important because if we say that this is bad luck, it's a missed circumstance, it's an unfortunate event, and we go, oh gosh, dang it, I'm so sorry, that's misfortunate. Was it something that you intended to happen? This tragedy, this calamity, this accident? This will be something that, again, with culpability and the difference between murder and manslaughter, intent, which for me, my formal education and going into competency, right? Competency of violent offenders. My dissertation on the actual addiction to violence, the assessment and treatment of psychopathy in America. So understanding this, not just in a 40 question thing like the PCLR might have us think, but instead a little bit more objective. And that this space is extremely important. And language right now in the age of Aquarius is more important than how we receive information, what you are listening to, what you are exposed to. Go down a conspiracy wormhole and say it's going to be 5G, say it's going to be going from a 3D to a 5D realm. Talk about all the different weird realms of HARP, Bill Gates buying airspace, air, UFOs, air, being able to ascend, being able to change your vibrations, being able to say no, being able to set boundaries, being able to, all of these things, very important, depending on whether or not you are religious or claiming a spirituality or label or something. You might already know exactly how to do that, how to navigate air magic. But air magic can be quite difficult. A lot of people don't like air, and rightfully so. When someone says Aquarius or Libra or Gemini, oh, no. This idea that Gemini might be two-faced. Libra is too much of an advocate or martyr, and Aquarius is just that stubborn journalist that is just out there to get the word out, right? Well, We are experiencing a lot of that right now in the age of Aquarius. We are shifting the rules, changing how things go. Matt and I told you in the astrology, with all of this Aries fire, you're going to be doing things. They're going to be saying dumb things. It'll be predominantly feminine energy saying the wrong thing, and then a bunch of people emotionally swarming in that direction. We have not been wrong. And as much as my ego would love to say it's me, and I'm psychic and gifted, it's not so much as it is the awareness of astrology and how things are moving, right? So, misfortune. If you didn't plan for this thing, if you didn't go out going, I'm going to go steal that little kid's ice cream cone. If you didn't plan this, if you didn't plan to wreck your car, if you didn't intend for this tragedy down, for someone to get COVID and die, or for a poison to happen, or you to get, whatever. If you didn't plan for it, then obviously you didn't think it, and nor did you emotionally prepare for it. If you didn't think it and intend for it, the natural progression is you didn't feel your way through it yet. Thinking, feeling, anxiety, depression, beep, 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 beep. Eventually we talk it out, catharsis, confession, speak it into existence, invoke, sing, I can't take it anymore. Just constructive criticism, right? Banter. You get something that either tips you back and I can't believe it. Now that I feel this, now I feel like this. And now that I've talked to so-and-so, now I feel like, oh my gosh. And it does this until you should decide to do something about it. Fire, action, ideal, passion, and movement can be quite destructive and painful. But a tornado moving into fire, things that happen in air, it's collateral damage. We have to know what we know and be sure of it confidently. Trolls be had. We still have to do it. You can't just say it. You have to do it. You can't just say that you did this. You have to do it. You got to prove it. But yeah, prove it. And then when you prove it, it tips you all the way back into this, right? To where you come back full circle. And this is the cycle of life. This is the cycle or process of energy. We're all trying to kind of be harmonious and cohesive and all of this well balanced. And we just kind of look at how things are going on the outside, how we fit on the inside. And it's a layered thing. It's like a cake. And you're going, wow, I need more egg. It didn't rise. I need more water. It didn't work. It's too watery. And you're just kind of working things out. And so for me, working in mental health as a counselor, for me, working in assessment and diagnoses and sitting across from someone with very little time and talking to them and listening to their language and depicting, okay, what do we have here? What do we have going on? What's going to happen? What is the likelihood of this repeating, this recidivism? These are things that are very important to be able to look ahead, not only prophetically, but with awareness, follow my intuition, listen to that person, know where the information came from, be sure about it, not have negative feelings, be cohesive, speak my truth, and then do it, and then be done with it. Boundaries. Just because I hear something I don't like doesn't mean that I have to make it ruin my day. Right? There's a lot of alchemy going on right now. People wanting for, if you're going to do something, or if you say you're going to do it, you've got to do it. And now is the time to initiate that doing as Aries pushes over into Taurus tonight. We're going to have some moving into Taurus. We're going to finally start moving into some earth spaces, but the full moon coming up by the end of the month is going to be a huge Scorpio full moon. People are going to really feel, they're going to be jealous. They're going to be envious. They're going to be excited. They're going to be happy. Whatever people are feeling right around. And what's freaky weird is that Russia is timing a lot of their announcements, Age of Aquarius, with the moon cycles. I don't know if you guys have noticed that. Hey, I see some of my favorite people in the chat room. This is really important for just information, paying attention to the information, knowing that to now know what you know, UFOs and conspiracy theories, talking about water, be sure you're following the water, be aware of the water. I don't know if guys are completely aware, or people, depending on where they're listening from, and if you're not, because I have a lot of listeners who are not in America. My in-laws live in the UK. And so being that a lot of my family are stationed overseas now that, thank you, Biden, we are active again and deployed. So people all over that listen in and tune in, America, our UO and our X-Files, they're closed to the public. Now you can like file for your Information Act and put in the paperwork and then wait a really long time. And they'll tell you like, oh, maybe I never did. And then maybe you'll get your stuff, maybe you won't. And then maybe you're going to be paranoid that, stuff's happening all throughout your life from that point on. I mean, if you guys knew my life, you'd know that just 10 years ago, I was working with David Crowley as he was filming Grace. I don't know if you've watched that on Netflix, but that personal story doesn't end well. And his wife and daughter, I mean, man, you start wondering about things. You just start wondering about things. So knowing this information, you have to be willing to take that risk. You have to be willing to kind of share what you know. And in America, it's more difficult than one might think, even though it's supposed to be the land of the free. Things are guarded quite heavily by the rich. And you have to know that's the privilege, right? You have to be able to speak and know the law. That's the privileged space, I believe personally. And if you know your privileges and your rights as given to you by the law, then you usually won't have as much of a problem as I see other people having. If you know how to get food stamps, if you know how to abide by the law, if you know that you can or can't do this, it makes life a little bit more easy to navigate. And so this is an interesting phenomenon now as shifting. The way information travels is shifting. The language that we are using is shifting. And when relief did through the that was actually, look at that screen blip when I say this stuff. Sound like a paranoid person. That's okay. Good mental health. So at least my clients will know they're not alone. This information is going to be released, right? We had 180 days from the beginning of the inauguration. I believe they're going to do it from the inauguration. I wasn't quite clear on whether or not it's from the first of the year or the inauguration. I believe it's from inauguration day. So going from January 20th to 180 days from there. Interesting. What Americans, again, a lot of our stuff is very that we are going to receive as far as information goes, slowing into our media. I sit in front of the TV with, like I did in the night, the news right after or before Oprah with my dad as he'd get home from work. I'm not like reading it individual the morning away. This to me. Don't do it. I'll cast my finger at you, FBI agent. You let me do my stream. You guys let me know in the chat. Hear me. My stuff is bleeping out. Poop diddly oop. And this is the stuff I worry about podcast because I have all my stuff and I still have issues when I try and speak the truth. When I try and speak the truth, I get all the problems and I have all the issues with my stuff. Yes. God dang. Anyway, if you can still hear me, post in the chat. I'll keep talking for just a brief moment to encourage you to keep an eye out for and let me know. I don't know if the major headlines are telling you that there's aliens coming, guys. They're out there. They have been for a long time. And we're going to be having a lot of interaction in that space. And government and politics and the Second Amendment. Gosh, Tennessee just passed some legislation that's amazing. Again, we had another shooter in Minneapolis today, this afternoon. So Lizzie's like, I can't hear you at all, but then I just heard you singing. Now, see, this is air magic. Talk about Aquarius. I have to, when I start singing, it's one of those magic. Part of my witchy magic. It's I'm part siren. I'm part many things, but that's things. And anyway, even despite all the strange things, right? All the things. Someone and Barb are like, gosh, it was horrible and it kept cutting out. And now it's fine. See, it's weird, isn't it? There's just certain things I am and I am not allowed to talk about. That's all I'll say. I work on a lot of cases. I work with a lot of different people. You guys just have to trust me. And again, I don't ask you to trust me as much as maybe just the information, and then trust yourself upon receiving it to go where you would go with it from there. Do you know what I mean? You know what I mean. You know what I mean. You know what I'm trying to say. Kayla, hi, my kitten is terrified by something I can't see. Are you able to tell me what it is? Ooh, Kayla. I don't really communicate with pets that often, especially not cats. It's not true. Not completely. I'm more of a dog person. Second to hedgehogs, snakes, things like that. Cats are wonderful. My sister is a cat person. She's also part lion person. I'm not kidding. So I usually bow to my other animal psychics, my other animal mediums, my animal friends. However, the age of Aquarius, we're connecting. And why not, right? You're asking. I always tell my psychic students and those I mentor, if you get the question, provide the answer. If you don't know, say you don't know. But if you're asking me and something pops in my mind, my kitten is terrified by something that I can't see. Are you able to tell me what it is? Sorry, there's going to be an awkward radio silence about your name. I'm shuffling my tarot deck because I do plan on pulling a few cards. So, Kayla, what comes to me for you psychically, because the way my psychic intuition works, I do necromancy work. So that means I usually see the darkest, grossest, weirdest, darkest things first. It's just a way that trauma has worked through me as a catalyst, unfortunately, but also fortunately. I didn't intend for it, right? That's the definition of misfortune. But and so I'm not asking for pity or water or emotional connection. Instead, I'm just telling you that this is where it comes from so that you know. And then what do we do with it from there? Well, we move forward and I say that, listen, this is, it seems like there's, I feel like you have somebody, Kayla, that likes you, that you don't like back. And this person really likes you and they want to be in your life. And you're like, you know what? I don't really like you. In fact, I don't even know if you know this person. They might just be like a troll or a stalker or the person that lives outside and updoors, or like this person. And you get this weird kind of vibe and you're like, ugh, I've got kind of this weird vibe like that. You know, like it's just kind of a creeper, but it's kind of it's a leechy, negative, a parasitic kind of I'm not worried about it, but it gives you an intuitive, negative, nasty feeling that I would absolutely attest to and follow and be like, yeah, you should keep your ear up. And I feel like when you're coming in the door and you have this, or there's that thought of this, that's where my brain goes, is I feel like, gosh, you have a kitten. That implies that it's young. Kittens do all sorts of crazy things. And young things are said to be closer to the veil because they just recently came into the world. And animals are said to be able to see all sorts of the spectrum beyond visible light that we can or cannot. So there's probably all sorts of weird things happening, Wi-Fi and things going on, gar openers and all this land of scare measures to touch stuff in the air. But spiritually speaking, I also think you're extremely intuitive and empathetic. And when you're carrying that energy, that it's kind of getting on that. So, yeah. Kayla says, yeah, it's an old man. How do I get rid of it? Well, how do you get rid of anything, right? You do it. You say that you're going to do it, and then you do it. You say that you want to do it, and then you do it. And this kind of space of like, you know what? I don't need this. I'm going to get rid of it. I'm going to donate it. I'm going to recycle it. How are you going to get rid of it? We can't ever really get rid of or replace or erase anything. We replace it, right? It's like a Left Eye lyric. We don't erase, we replace. That's behavior 101. And so you have to be able to say, you know what, this doesn't serve me. So I give you here, I deliver you here, go here, I cashed you here, I send you here, go to hell, go here. I'm calling the police next time, whatever. This is why harassment is so important, that you say stop. Did you tell them stop? Did you tell them no? Did you tell them you didn't like that? Or did you giggle? Did you go, don't? Because, you know, like, have you seen How High? Like, no, don't stop. No, not for me. It's stop. No, don't. There's a difference, and the order in which and tone in which we say these words can give the wrong or right opinion or message. And so we have to be very, 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 very clear with our language and say, like, get rid of it. And sometimes saying it. I love seeing people put like the clear tape on their doorways. You can use dry erase markers and write sigils, or you can write messages. You can do chalk under your doorstep, being sure that when you come into your space, into your sacred space, that you're not thinking about that negative energy, that you drop it, kind of like going into, you know, walking out on the mat as a gymnast. You just kind of become that different space and say, it's not allowed to be here. You know what I mean? And really you have to, that's that shadow work of commanding your own space. And it's easier to do. And the belief follows when you say you're not allowed here. And then you do, writing it down, doing the ritual, putting the salt out, doing the saging, putting out the flowers, doing whatever it is that you want to do. That's usually air to fire, air to fire. Then you want to burn it. Then you want to throw its ashes into the wind, air, fire. These are all those things. It helps people release the inner things. And so that's why when someone's like, we're all going to sit together today at 3:00 and we're going to curse anybody who does that. This kind of baloney, anything that you curse, you usually bring back to you. You bring back to the source. I curse you. I curse you. What does that mean when you curse something? That's something negative you put into air that is tied to your intention. If you ever come back here, I'll cut your toes off. I curse you. And that means that you have to be accountable for that. And that also means that when you say that and that person returns, you got to actually cut their toes off. Like, and people are going to be like, oh my God, did you hear them say that? She like said that she was going to cut her toes off. That's really weird. She sounds like a bitch. She sounds like a crazy bitch. Like, oh my God, curses make you sound bad. When you hex or curse something, karma is going to come back to you. Karma is, you have become what you have done. It's what you think it is, but it isn't. It's not some personified monster of energy that's going to come and catch up to you. It's quite frankly the momentum of the current you create whenever you're getting out of the pool and you do a little circle so that all the stuff goes to the center and down the drain. You have become what you have done. And so it's just important to kind of be aware of that momentum, your intention, a harmony, and saying and doing will really help the process. And then don't just say something and do it, right? It comes back around, right? I love this deck. This is a really cool Hermetic deck. I got it on my most recent adventure to Georgia, which tomorrow at noon, don't forget, guys, we'll be doing No Man's Land, my very first debut episode of my moderately political, crazy, libertarian kind of space to talk about things on the fringe. No Man's Land, of course, playing a pun to the fact that I'm coming from the perspective of a mother, of a female, from the middle ground, from a necromancy purgatory spiritual space, and kind of trying to be a cooperative between the red and the blue. So also being someone who has to speak for my two white boys, who apparently are the most demonistic, evil things on the planet because of, I don't know what. So in this space, I think the name is appropriate. I do oftentimes feel like there needs to be a pause in a battlefield. And in that debate, there needs to be that moment of reprieve. And so I just really loved that name. And yeah, so that'll be noon tomorrow. So thank you for asking. Teresa, I had to kick someone out of my bedroom because it was touching me. Now it's trying to attract my husband by walking into the room in the wee hours of the morning. That's really interesting. So like, are you wondering if it's like an incubus succubus, if it's a shapeshifter, if it's calling out with names? I am burning a salt rock candle because I don't have sage. That's fine. The saging process, actually, it's kind of one of those things where, there's a lot of indigenous gatekeepers of saging because it's a process where like you plant the sage, you grow the sage, you cull the sage, you dry the sage, you bundle the sage, you braid the sage, you burn the sage, you release the sage, you bury the acid, you give thanks to the sage. And that saging is not just lighting something that you bought at the gift store on fire and going, be gone, and opening the window and dancing around. I mean, it can be, of course, if your thought power and intentions are behind it. But the whole process of giving credence to the tradition is something that you like, even as you're culling the flower and culling the leaves, you're like, you do it mindfully and it's your own plant. So you wouldn't just do it for anything. You would be very mindful of it. So, and sage was really, it's an aromatic and also smoke cleansing, which you can do with patchouli. You can do it with yarrow root. You can do it with rose petals. You can do it with your own incense. Right? Lene says, I do that with cannabis all the time. Right? For any of your plants that are safe, of course, they're not going to become an irritant when you're burning them. But like anything that you see in an incense, usually like patchouli or things like that, you can make your own incense. You can make your own smoke cleansings. And the idea is not only that the smoke actually removes the oxygen and kills any bacteria or living organism in that space. So it actually is killing bad energy or bacteria or fungus or viruses or things like that. But I think it's interesting and kind of what it is symbolically too, not just scientifically. So it can be anything. It's supposed to smell good and it's supposed to cause a fogginess to where you close your eyes and listen. Because air is about knowing what you know. I'm hearing the wind chimes when I close my eyes. It makes you stop. That's why you close your eyes in prayer. And hospice nurses, when they're opening the window after a soul passes through the body, you usually find that moment naturally that people will close their eyes and respect discernment. It's really beautiful. Palo Santo. One of my dear friends who makes runes, Liz's Weird Gear. She makes all sorts of really unique Nordic, Celtic, pagan kind of divination tools, specifically rune sets. They're one of a kind and they're beautiful. But she started making these really cool, and I won't share too much, but they're wood pieces that are wood runes that you can toss and throw and burn like incense. And they smell like delicious. You want to salivate when you smell them. And that's the idea, is that you want it to be pleasing. You want it to be aromatic, like bringing flowers to the funeral. It's not just to show a sign of respect. It's to make sure that the air is pleasant when we're crying, when we're giving the eulogy, and as spirit is passing through the air, that it is doing so in a divine and positive space, that people are thinking positive thoughts, and that it is a pleasant space to be, rather than one that smells like a decaying body that makes people sad and in the final throes of grief. It makes things worse. Air magic helps you, absolutely, and it can be as powerful as a pin dropping. I mean, air magic is the soundtrack. You ask Hans Zimmer and he will. Air magic is powerful. And yes, that includes smoke, that includes incense, that includes diffusing, steam rooms, saunas, smoke, fog, mist. Ooh, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Frequencies, music, whispers. I hear that. A lot of people hearing noises and sounds in the night lately. It seems like since the age of Aquarius shift, since the December 21st shift, a lot of people hearing things. I'm hearing things. A lot of schizophrenic people hearing a lot more auditory hallucinations. And again, some of the individuals outside of American psychiatric care we'll test you for tinnitus and just see if you're hearing radio waves. Because with the amplification of 5G, a lot of the amplification of auditory hallucinations isn't just because you're schizophrenic or having an adverse reaction to something. It can actually be that you are hearing waves. So you can check that out. Hopefully you have a doctor that before medication, they do some exploration. So I just throwing that out there for you guys. For those of you who, well, and I say those of you, only one person recently, I was doing some filming work for a new show that I'm excited to see how maybe that pans out. Who knows with COVID? And being like, I no longer work in that kind of licensed space for a certain reason. Being a private consultant is a little different because American medicine, there comes a point when the Hippocratic Oath and the NIH will stop. And you can actually find that line in the COVID wormhole. There's a fine line between where the ethical boards said, you know what, we actually cannot support this anymore. We actually can no longer support what these vaccines and mRNA and some of the neurological adverse side effects, we can no longer allow human participation, and we can no longer allow some of the conflicts of interest. It's just not, it's not ethical. And then suddenly those companies got outsourced to a place called Wuhan. Not even kidding. And anyway, that happened in the United States, big pharma. And when that happened, big things also shifted in the American Psychological Association and just in medical, I think in American medical. I know a lot of doctors and individuals that work in that industry, and there's a lot of individuals that don't always agree with what they're doing. So there's some spaces in there where you have to be able to navigate, and to be able to work privately is a privilege. So that's why. Not sure what causes if I'm pregnant, but it freaks me out. I do hear baby crying. Could be that you're pregnant, that you hear baby crying. Actually, pregnant women will sometimes have that like parasympathetic, precognitive, anxious thoughts that are like projecting spaces. It's kind of a common theme too, to be having very scary dreams about your teeth falling out or things growing onto your body. The psychoanalysis there, of course, is that it's just an extension of your space and what you'll be doing soon. It's a future sight, says Andress. Right, absolutely. Kind of this prophetic space. You're pregnant. You are really in the veil. You are creating life. You are the alpha and the omega. So Kayla says, do you see my baby being healthy? You know, it's funny. I have a lot of friends right now who are pregnant, and a lot of them who are pregnant with baby girls. And it seems to me like this COVID space has created the Pisces to Aquarius shift, where we are seeing a lot of very bold, powerful children being born. I don't want to stray too terribly into this space because I know people will get quite uncomfortable. But the vaccine position I'm pretty strong on. So as you are pregnant, just being sure that everything going in and around your body is healthy, that is going to be the biggest factor, I think, for whether or not your baby is healthy. And those are all things you can currently control. So that's exciting. So that makes me feel very optimistic, because if you're concerned about it, then that means it's in the forefront of your heart and mind. And that means it will likely not be an issue. It's the people who aren't worried about those things that often have the concerns to be worried about. Teresa Holloway says, I feel like I know more than doctors do. They don't often know how to handle me. I'm disabled. Oh, I'm so sad to hear that. Well, I don't want to say I'm sad to hear that. I know disabled can mean an array of things. But I know exactly how you feel in that space. I have polycystic ovarian disease. I'm also iron deficient anemic. So those two things together, you know, I won't go into the TMI of it, but oftentimes doctors are male. Oftentimes my OBGYN and my endocrinologists and my specialists are male. And so trying to explain to them the difference of mental health fluctuations on testosterone and progesterone and just natural hormones, and being able to feel that fluctuation in my body, and also the lack of iron. These things are really important. My diet, my exercise, the things that I want to do for supplements, the things that I do for, just taking care of my body. And oftentimes I don't feel like that doctors have necessarily the, and this is the same problem with a lot of social services. And I'll talk a lot about this in my No Man's Land podcast that starts tomorrow at noon, by the way. In the psychological space of this is I feel like this is the lack of the village. When you are detached from whom it is you're servicing, you don't always get the accomplishment, the feedback. You don't get the empathetic cause and effect, the reward cycle. And we are very much a reward species. We very much like to have that connection. So when you are removed, even as a doctor, you're not doing the assessment. You have a nurse doing that. You don't have this. You just pop in for 1 second. So the billing does this. So that's the cheapest because of that. You're not the town doctor anymore that's coming into the home that knows the person and little Johnny and that detachment. I think, when you lose a patient, it's just, God, I hope everyone was doing their job so I don't get sued. Not, oh God, I'm so sorry. The forefront of the concern is no longer the person. And that, I think, has become a big issue for every social service. And when you spend more time documenting for liability's sake as a daycare teacher than you do spending time doing the itsy bitsy spider because you only have so much time, but that has to be done, I find that to be a little, it's a virus in itself that's breaking down a system. So Andres says, tell me something about me and I will tell you something about yourself. Ooh, that your name is Andres Antonio Gonzalez. That's all I can see because it cuts it off. And that you look like a friend of mine whose name is Jason Rudolph that I've just recently realized I haven't heard from in a while, and I hope he's doing okay. Yulia says, Kayla Johnson, okay, send me friend request for your spiritual reading. Guys, I would really appreciate it. I know I get a lot of trolls, but try not to come on and sell to people. That would be great because I'm only going to, block you in hindsight. So don't do that. Don't do that for me or for you. It will not be good. But anyway, so you guys, thank you so much for joining me. I have my deck here. If you would like me to pull a card for you, just let me know. And then that way we'll finish out. We're at the top of the hour here and I'll let you go. I just wanted to jump in and let you guys know that I'll be online tomorrow for No Man's Land at noon and that I'll be here on StreamYard just like this. And that I will still be doing the Astrological Tuesdays with Matt Slozier, and that my Spiritual Sundays, I wanted to go over the definition of misfortune and also the definition of justice so that just people will kind of look at it. And even in that space of misfortune, to make sure that you know that because someone didn't plan it, they haven't felt a certain way about it. So their response or their feeling response will be a little different. The more information you know, your emotional response will change. And when you try and fault someone for a misfortune, that isn't going to do anything. The woe or the failure or the trial, it needs to be something that moves forward. And when I say that, it's because like here in Minneapolis, this week we're awaiting this verdict, right? And people we said, well, if it's not this verdict, if it's not this, then we're gonna this. That is not justice. That is not objective. It is not bipartisan. It is not neutral. It is in no way looking forward to the future. And when you think about misfortune, if you are doing something for a certain emotional feeling, and if you have planned it, and you had said, if this happens, there's absolute intent there. And there does not have to be any pity. And that, well, that's misfortune. No, it is not. Not if it was planned. Now, if it wasn't planned, then that is misfortunate. And when you get sad about it, we don't necessarily have to be sad with you because the timing will be subjective as it goes backwards in hindsight. But it won't be for us. It would be for that person. Misfortune is not something you empathize with. It's not something people ever want to empathize with for a good reason. It was not planned. Tragedies are setbacks. And if you try and connect yourself to that, you yourself will be set back. So it's very important to kind of be aware of that. and that the definition of misfortune in this trial space is so important. So let me pull a card. Teresa, I want to pull a card for you really quick. Ooh, Lord of the Forces of Life. The Wheel of Fortune. This is a major arcana card. Any of the 22 major arcana connected to, of course, the Tree of Life, the Wheel of Fortune. Be aware who is pulling the strings. Be aware of what it is that you want to be having happening, because you are in more control than you might feel. However, this is a very good indication that you're in that Pluto space. Pluto is shifting right now into what happened in 2008, 2012, shaking things back up, for the end of 2020, coming to full term resolution now. This is a very good indication that those life changes you've been planning are going to come full circle, and hopefully those lessons have been learned, and that you are the one, reaching Bob Barker there at the wheel, and he's going, okay, do you have any final shout outs? And you're like, yep. And then the Wheel of Fortune, you land on $1. This is amazing. You're getting ready to go to the final countdown, the final showcase. But the Wheel of Fortune is a place of opportunity and optimism. It is that air to fire. It's an indication to act, to take these opportunities and be optimistic, but also be aware. Okay. Now, Linnea, right? I'm going to pull a card for you. I hope your daughter's doing well. I hope your family is well. And that next time I'm in Kansas City, let me know. I'm doing some really cool photo shoots for Strange Music, some of their new rappers that they have signed. And you guys know I'm a big fan of Tech9 and following his work for years and years and years, being from Kansas City. And I plan to do a bunch of really cool portrait photo shoots. So Linnea, I know you're still modeling. We need to collab. But let me pull a card for you. Whatever it is you're thinking about. Ooh, this is the perfect card to draw for you. Of all the people to get this, I feel very comfortable showing this to you and you not freaking out. In fact, you probably being very aware of how important this card is. Another major arcana card. Very, very close connection to the sacred geometry of the Tree of Life. You can see here some of the things popping up. And here we are, the Devil. Dun, dun, dun. Right, when you're starting off with tarot, or if you aren't familiar with it, the Lord of the Gates of Matter, you think, oh, the devil, shoot. It's not meant to necessarily be scary or an indication that the devil has got you. But right, big change ahead, and like a beautiful Gavin Rossdale slithering in your ear saying, yeah, go ahead, buy that. Or like tonight, we watched Tom and Jerry at the movie theater with the kids, and that devil and angel popping up, your conscious, narrating what you should or shouldn't do, the good and the bad. The devil is that indication that there might be a bigger force at hand influencing the decisions, influencing the current at which things are moving. And if you don't like or are not aware of those energies and influences, then change them. Because ultimately the devil comes from a place of introspection, right? All the demons are still angels, fallen, right? Fallen, they've gone back to where intention starts, earth, the earth plane and water, how we feel, our deepest connections and empathies, and where we do, unfortunately, anxiety and depression, those demons of the yin spaces. They can really do a lot of damage. Don't underestimate air and fire, though. People do pray to Archangel Michael, and that's a very powerful space too. So enlightenment is about having harmony across the board and being able to go into your shadows and not be afraid. Do not be afraid. Psalms 42, I know your name, and now you are mine. So just by knowing what those influences are, you will have the power over them. So I know that you know what those are, and you know what I'm talking about, because you're like, nope, this is perfect. Perfect. All right, guys. Teresa says, man, I am in Kansas. Perfect. See, we can meet up, because as you know, Kansas City, sometimes people go, that's in Kansas, right? It's in both. It's like the Twin Cities. It's why I moved to the Twin Cities. It reminded me of home. It's two cities, Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and they have a river flowing between them. And you take a bridge from Missouri to Kansas. Kansas is, we won't speak poorly of Kansas, but I went my undergraduate MU, so Missouri, Columbia. I gotta, my stepmom worked at KU on the IV therapy team there for a long time. So, and my dad's actually going to be at KU tomorrow, getting some of the final stages of chemo for some of his kidney treatment, and they are some of the best in the country. So very excited. Love Kansas. Don't completely hate them. But Missouri's better. So welcome, Teresa. I'm glad to see that you're from near home. Linnea says enlightenment. Samantha, how are you? As you guys can see, I'm hanging in there, as we say, like a hair on a biscuit. And I am right at my 1 hour moment. And I told myself I would not go over. So look at me. I'm breaking the law, breaking the law. Teresa says, I love Lawrence. When I think of Lawrence, I love Lawrence. And I also love Atchison. We're going to be doing some specials and some events in Atchison this year and next year. I'm hoping, as long as the apocalypse doesn't come, right? And Atchison, Overland Park has got my favorite yayas. I grew up, a good friend of mine, he ended up killing himself last year. Or no, gosh, it's been 2 years now. We worked at Yaya's together. And Yaya's Euro Bistro, it is so fantastic there in Overland Park. And there was a location in the Northland in Missouri. And that's where we worked together. I had my first job as a pastry chef there. It was fantastic. So going and getting their polenta is like nostalgia for me. And Amr Abawarda, I think he's still part of the ownership there. But really great team of chefs and people. And I go to Overland Park and I think about olden days, times where I worked for Sprint as a manager and went back and forth from the properties of the Sprint days. And Overland Park is cray cray. All the street racing down at the Fairfax district. Just crazy. And it's such a good space. And I get nervous, I'll be honest, knowing that cities, metropolitan cities especially, are changing and shifting so rapidly that, I've not been able to travel to Missouri in a while. It's been since last August. So I wonder how much has changed since I was there last, because I know a lot has changed in Minneapolis. Ooh, almost everything is boarded up. Almost everything is burned. It's so sad. It is so sad that I can't drive past like where my boys and I, like where we all raised them. It's so sad. Anyway, that's sad. Samantha, any chance you can pull a card for me? Yes, of course. Those are the two I already pulled. Well, this is probably a good card for you, and you're going to understand this. It is the 10 of Swords. So it is the 10 of air. I just got done explaining air. We really don't want to be in air. We've been in air for far too long, and we're in air still. It's going to slowly start quieting tonight as things shift into Taurus. And the 10 would be an indication of a double high five, a conclusion, a resolution, a climb to the top of the mountain right before you get into the court cards. And the 10 of air means, oh, the combination of the bad shit. Oh, it's done. This is like, if I wanted to do spiritual Delilah, this is Wade in the Water, or the Oh Brother We're Out There soundtrack. This is like Wade in the Water. How's that? Katie McGinnis. Let me channel her. The wade in the water. Wade in the water, children, wade. It's a beautiful hymn. But that's what I think about. And it's this very spiritual, very heavy, very like, I just got through all of this heavy burden, this emotional catastrophe, all this bullshit. But it's coming to an end. It's coming to an end. It's coming to an end. Oh, thank the heavens. Thank the Lord. Coming to an end. That's great. That's good. I like that kind of music. It kind of puts me in like a Stevie Ray Vaughan space. Lizzie, pastries are my favorite. I learned to make an amazing souffle. I can spin caramel and make a really good souffle. But sugar is my weakness, so it's a struggle. Lizzie, let's pull a card for you. Ooh. This is the King of Pentacles. It takes me to Genesis 1:20, and it mentions Aries and Taurus, which is interesting because we're going from Aries to Taurus tonight. The moon is shifting in that way from fire to earth. And Raphael, Archangel Raphael, the Prince of the Chariot of Earth. Man, the King of Pentacles, this is a masculine patriarch, but it's also that kind of final cap, the authority in all of your thoughts. So it could very well be like a Capricorn male, or it could just be a Capricorn energy, a very cardinal energy, very practical, very objective, very forward, but earth, pentacles, discs, diamonds if you're playing cards. It is that building block, or diamonds, the money. It can also be an indication of money because earth is investment. It's like Johnny Appleseed. It's like planting. It's the thought. It's the intention. And this would be that there's an intention of some movement going on, some younger male movement going to and fro. The King of Pentacles, really knows how to be patient, knows how to be quiet and be a good listener. This is a good indication that whatever investments you're making, maybe Dogecoin or something like that, you're doing pretty well. Hang in there, be persistent, be patient, endure. And you know how to do that. You've been taught that. You're surrounded by that strong masculine ability to do that, be strong. And the King of Pentacles is very strong. So that's a good energy. I like it. You're very welcome, Lizzie. Barb. All right, Barb, let's pull one for you here real quick. Ooh, the Four of Pentacles. Lord of the earthly power. So Pentacles, again, earth. Pentacles is earth, practical thoughts, thinking. But 4, it's going to be more of probably a Virgo to Taurus. Maybe even both. The 4 is balance. The 4 is like the 4 pillars of a square. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's an even number, so it's balanced. It's symmetrical. It is an indication of like domestic investments. This is like an engagement. This is something that is a beginning to a commitment. 4 out of 10, 40%. I mean, you're not even halfway there, but you're almost halfway there. 40 is a good indication of kind of where you are, and earthly power suggesting, to keep that endurance of thought and stay forward in the strength and courage that it's providing you, which I really like. Mary. Yes, Mary. Mary, who we need to touch base with this week, by the way. 5 of Cups. Lord of the loss of pleasure. Ooh, the 5 of Cups. Now look at this. Beautiful symbolism here. We've got the Virgo. We've got the lily pad. We've got cups kind of pouring one from the other, but this indication of like coming and going, and the flowers and the lily pads growing and drooping their roots and their blossoms in these different spaces. It's this reciprocation. And 5 is an odd number, right? So it's not symmetrical. It's not going to be even or fair, but 5 is an indication that you're halfway there, 50%. And so this is where you are able to see good perspectives. It's the precipice between feeling something and then being able to share it with other people and then to criticize it, and you to either recoil back in and reevaluate, or to just say, you know what, I don't care what you say, and you're going to do it anyway and forge ahead. But the 5 of Cups says, you know what, you're halfway through feeling this out and you're on the move and you are really feeling invested and strong. And I imagine whatever this is, Mary, the full moon coming up in Scorpio is going to be very powerful, because I'm seeing a lot of the Scorpio signs here. The loss of pleasure, that's a water sign. The Scorpio is the middle water sign. The 5 of Cups is the middle of water. Scorpio is coming right at the end of this month. So I would say things are probably going to come to full awareness, full information, manifestation, that kind of space. Oh, like, I always think of Monty Python. Oh, it's going to come to that on the full moon this month. So that astrological cheat sheet, if you guys are part of the Gypsy tribe, you've got a copy. You kind of know when the movements are going to be, and you can ride them a little bit more easily and navigate things. So hopefully that is what we do there with that. But you guys, I want to thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to go heat up my coffee and go touch base with the mister, make sure the kids are in bed. We've got testing this week, and just some certain things we're going to be doing, projects, of course. And the most important thing is that tomorrow you're going to be hearing No Man's Land, right? You're going to be joining me at noon here, same place, same time, either on Facebook or YouTube, same channel. And No Man's Land is a fun middle ground political podcast. We're going to be talking about psychology and just kind of what's going on in and around America and our space, and how to discuss it in a way that is respectful. And I hope that you will join me. Bring your friends, tag someone you know that might be interested. And I do hope that I will get your support and see you there tomorrow. So guys, have a wonderful Sunday, rest of your evening, and sleep tight. Don't let the bed bugs bite. And I will talk with you soon. Bye-bye.